The trunk lid in our car is in seriously rough condition, but I don't just want to throw this thing out, not without trying to save it first. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to be taking the time to cut it apart, to strip it, and to see what can be done and if it's possible to save this thing. The only thing is I've never done this before, so I don't even know if I can save this thing. Let's give it a shot. My name is Trooper Max, and I'm restoring a car that's been off the road since 1977. But I've never done this before. I've taken the time to do my research, and I'm building the car of my dreams, hoping to inspire others to do the same. All right, so we're back on the Nova, and the shop for the first time is looking quite empty. This is pretty cool. We got the car covered now. The car has been put away for a bit. We're gonna be moving on to some other parts. I think it's time to tackle that trunk lid that's been sitting over there since we pushed the car in. It is a little bit crusty and a little bit rusty. Ooh, really rusty actually. And I'm not 100% sure if this thing could be saved, but we sure as hell are gonna try. So looking at this, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, this has been painted before, so this is not the original color. The only concern I really have, big rust hole over here, and it's pretty bad. Yeah, that's very rusty, this whole area here. I don't know how long it goes, but yeah, this part looks pretty solid. Really, it's just this square here. So what happened here, I've seen this a lot of times. The only difference on this side and the other side is here you got these two little holes. So this is where the Nova symbol went in. And what happens is it wasn't sealed properly, and the water went in between the two panels, and because this was the lowest point, water traveled to the lowest point and got trapped in here. Even though there was a hole, the hole is more on the side. It really should have been here because water would still sit in here. So water sat in here and it rotted. And then inside is all rusty because they weren't treated on the inside in any way. There was no paint or anything back in the day. It's just the way it was. But this is all something we could take care of. I think we can fix this. If we open this, we could definitely treat it. But there's gonna be rust everywhere in this. So yeah, I'm looking at it. I could be like, oh, can I cut around here, take the whole thing off, sand it, you know, prime it, all this stuff. I think that's way too much work. I don't see that being necessary. At that point, I just buy a new trunk. There's another option though. We can treat the inside with a product. So there's not even gonna be water in there. There's not supposed to be any water in there. So the fact that there was is what made the problem in the first place. If we do frame coating on the inside, this thing should last. As long as we stop the water from coming in, there shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, I'm gonna save this thing, but I'm not gonna cut it all open. Being my first time doing something like this, I don't know the right answer. It's more of just exploring and seeing what works. But then again, I may think differently once I cut this thing open. So I think that's the first step we gotta do. Let's crack her open. All right, it looks a little brittle over here. I didn't go quite big enough, so I'm gonna put the gear back on and cut the rest out. All right, put that aside. Let's do a little colonoscopy inside this bad boy. Okay, so yeah, it's rusty here, but as it goes further, it's not bad. Not bad at all in there, actually. It's really just this area here. All right, so if this was the main shell of the car, and because of the thinness of the metal, I'd be cutting it open now and I'd be, you know, doing a full restoration as usual. But in this case, it's just not gonna happen. It's not necessary, it really isn't. So first thing I'm gonna do is clean it out as much as I can, and then we're gonna start treating it. So let's do that. All right, let's blow this sucker out. All right, so we stripped that area and we have found ourselves in a position significantly different than we originally anticipated. Turns out this car has a lot more rust than we anticipated. So the far area here has a little bit of rust, and the area we're working on has a lot of rust, lots of pinholes, lots of problems. And when you look at a project like this now at this point, it's like, is it even worth it anymore at this point? Now it's kind of become a difficult project. And I find myself in this situation, maybe I said a little too much earlier, you know, thinking it's in better shape than I thought, but it seems like it's not. Well, I'll tell you this much. I could take this thing and I could throw it out and I can go buy a new one. However, if I'm doing that, this is going to the dump anyways. So I figure I'm gonna try to fix it. Even if it's the wrong way. You know, I always try to do things the right way as much as possible, but you just run into these crazy situations where you gotta kind of, you know, cowboy it, and I think that's what we're gonna have to do here, because this is a cowboy situation. Most of the restorers wouldn't even look at this, they would just get rid of it, right? Unless there's only one of a kind, right? I'm gonna treat this like this is the only one in the world, you know what I mean? I'm gonna do my best. Because if you look on the rest of it, down there, it's great. This whole area is great. This area, if I were to cut this whole thing out, it's gonna be really difficult. You know, people have metal benders and all this stuff. I don't have those tools. I have a hammer, that's about it. So what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna cut a square out here, treat this area, fix that, and then cut this area and do it separately. I think that's the only way I'm gonna be able to do it. Just with my crude tools, I don't see myself doing it another way. So for now, all I'm gonna start with, I'm actually gonna cut that part out, and then we're gonna treat the inside and then move on, since we have all this access. Okay, well, this is a little more than I was expecting. Turns out it's a lot rustier than I thought. Like, check this out. This is what it's looking like under there. There's actually holes going in the outside too. So this is pretty bad. Not what I was expecting, that's for sure. I thought the outside skin would have been okay, but it looks like it might be compromised. Hi, Susie. Max is not happy. He's finding problems on the Nova. How you doing, pal, huh? Here you go. Here, we'll give you the salami, the cold cuts, the gabagoo. A little bit of everything, eh? When you hear of cars rusting from the inside out, this is what you think of. This is pretty bad. Now, mind you, if you look inside, the rust here, it's just surface rust. It's not a big deal. If we put that frame coating on, it'd be okay. I didn't expect to have to do anything on the outer skin, so I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I think what I have to do is I have to flip this over, and I think I have to sand along the seam here. If there's a billion holes, it's not worth fixing. Damn it. All right, so we stripped the areas that we were concerned about, and I'm not a huge fan of what I found. Not because it's horrible, but because it's not horrible. All the way across is fine. Really, the only areas are here and on the other side. The problem is, this is not a flat area. I am not a body man. I have done such minimal work. This is not an easy thing to make look good, so it's that freaking area, man, where it's like, do you do it, do you save it, or do you move on? Like, I really want to try to do this, but at the same time, I don't know if I have the abilities to do this, because this is a pretty difficult cut. I think we're gonna give it a shot. No idea how this will turn out. This could be a stupid idea and a waste of time, but I'm gonna go, first of all, before I do anything, I'm gonna flip her over, I'm gonna put the frame coating in. I could be wasting frame coating here if this doesn't work out, but because everything's open right now, I have access. It gives me the ability to hit everything. So let's do that first and then we'll move on. Okay, so prior to putting any product inside, I wanted to take as much out as I could. So what I did is I took the hood and I just shook it, and mouse nests started falling out and all this stuff, all this debris. I took so much stuff out. And then I just took a scuff pad, I put it on this and I fed it inside, and I was able to really clean it out. All the chunks came out. Now this is pretty good. There's no loose rust, it's all just surface rust, but at the same time it's pretty hard. These are the ideal conditions of frame coating. That's what we'll do now. I think we're gonna grab it. Our frame coating is not far away. Here she is. So this is what we're gonna be using. Eastwood internal frame coating. I've been using it for a lot of the projects. You just can't access a lot of these things, so that's what we'll do. I'm gonna use it here, and this is the first time where you could really see inside here. So it's gonna be cool to see the results on a larger scale. So we're gonna take it, we're gonna shoot it in. Just gonna be putting all this stuff in areas I can't reach. I'm gonna take a coat hanger and use the coat hanger. I'm just gonna shoot as much stuff in there as I can, and we'll let it dry and we'll see what it looks like. Trunk lid's all painted. It looks like an absolute war zone. Man, any areas we can get into, we end up putting our frame coating, and we just loaded this bad boy with 2 full cans. And the area where there was lots of water damage, we end up coating that whole area. We know that area is nice and protected. Now in terms of this other area, we don't really know. We can't see in there. It's hard to tell. We just did the best we could. But the thing is, this car was leaking really early on, which is why they painted it in 1977. So it was already having water damage and rusting and all that. It's 52 years old. And this is the only damage really we had, and there's nothing here. So I figure if there's a little bit of surface rust under there somewhere, if we stop the water, it shouldn't be a problem. It should last another 50 years at the very least. But out here, I think we dealt with it. Now it's time to deal with the bad parts. So even though I risk the chance of warping and messing up the angles and whatnot, I'm gonna cut this all open, and I'm just gonna put some 18 gauge metal. Never done this before, don't know what it's gonna look like. We're just gonna try our best. See what happens. All right, she's done. I'm pretty impressed by that. Both sides turned out pretty good. Wow. Obviously there's gonna be body fill on that, but for what it is, I'm pretty impressed. I didn't think I'd have to do these. I was intimidated, and bam, we did it. So that's cool. Now, on the underside, I have no idea how the hell we're gonna make those brackets, but we got through this stage, and that's a win in my book. That's enough work for today. All right, so I thought the other side was gonna be difficult. I think this is gonna be the hard side. Just recreating these shapes is gonna be a challenge. This side shouldn't be too bad. That one is gonna be probably quite the challenge. So I think it's gonna be a lot more smaller pieces to make it happen. I don't even know yet. I'm gonna try to save as much of the original metal as I can. It is very strong. There's a lot of structure, so I don't have to really get rid of it. It's just ugly, really, to be honest with you, but I want to at least try to fix it. But overall, I'm pretty damn happy on the other side. Look at that, it looks pretty good. Not bad for a guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, eh? All right, let's get going, see what we can do. So one of the biggest things I'm learning with these jobs is 90% is preparation, 10% is actual work. So always prepare the surfaces if you have access, because next thing you know, you're putting in metal and you've forgotten to paint your surfaces. Happens all the time. So filling something like this, having never done anything like this before, I just find myself cutting a lot of pieces, hammering it, and just constantly going back and forth and using the tools I have available. So obviously the vise is very useful, the hammer is very useful, and what happens is you find yourself going back and forth a million times, using the vise, using the hammer. There's really no easy way about doing this, just the way it goes. You find yourself doing the same thing over and over. But the most important thing I have to say is not actually finishing anything until you're absolutely 100% happy with it. Once the fitment is perfect, then you can start clamping things down. So I've been using these C-clamps, and they work really good. It just helps you put things in place, and then using magnets in places where I can't reach the clamps. Then once I'm happy with it, then I start tack welding it, putting it all together, and away we go. This is what it's all about. But doing something like this, you gotta be quite patient, because too much heat means you're gonna get warpage, so you find yourself going very slow. You do a few welds, you end up cooling it down, and then going all over again. Now obviously this is not a thin piece of metal I'm using here, this is several pieces of metal put together, but there still is warpage if you're not careful, so I do find myself trying to work slowly, making sure I cool down the surface before I do any more welding. And eventually it gets done, even if it looks like some crappy welding. But that's good enough for me. We could always grind it down, so that's what we do. Just using a flap disc, we're able to flatten this bad boy down and make it look as good as possible. Now it's not about being perfect here, it's just about getting rid of that bump so that we can eventually add our filler and make it look pretty. We're not going for perfection here, that's the point of the filler. All we want to do is make it as flat as possible without compromising any of the structure anywhere. So it's got to be really careful not to grind off too much in some areas. So I'm just grinding off the humps, taking off the excess. Pinholes are not a problem here. We're going to fill those in later, so it's not an issue. Now that everything's closed up, now we can shoot our internal frame coating and make sure that inside is done forever. We don't have to touch it ever again. Now it's a matter of going back and forth. And pretty much I have 3 stations set up here. So what I like to do is I have the vise, I have my station where I'm working, and then I have an area for cutting, just so I'm not compromising my work area. I'm not getting as dirty as I can. And this may look like insanity, but this is what it takes. If you want to make it look good, you got to spend the time. And there's really no quick way about it. It takes a lot of practice and going back and forth, making mistakes, but making sure you're happy with what you're doing. Once you're happy, yeah, you can drop it in. That's exactly what we did. So this piece was pretty hard to do. I had to do a relief cut down the middle. And then when I welded it all together, well, I wasn't exactly happy with it. It turned out to be much lower, so I grabbed the grinder and I cut that sucker back open. When it comes to doing something like this, you really only have one shot at it. So if you're not happy with it, go back, fix it, make sure you're happy with it, because you can't do it again once it's all done. It's just a matter of bending it slightly, but that one little adjustment made all the difference in making this as flat as possible. Yeah, I can fill it with filler, but I don't want ½ an inch of filler in some areas, so I'm really trying to use as much metal as I can. And then it was just a matter of going back and starting the other pieces. Because the next area was very complicated, I wasn't able to make one big piece like on the other side, so I found myself making a series of small pieces, constantly taking the original pieces and comparing them. Drilling my holes for the Nova symbol just so I can get these ready to go, because there will be something on top of this. And of course, just working on the pieces until you're happy with it. Once everything's good to go, it's just about a matter of tack welding it together, and then welding it all together, grinding off the excess, and over. It's pretty much the same process over and over. There's really no secret about it. I actually end up doing a lot of relief cuts in some areas in order to make bends that don't work as well as I wanted to. I don't have a metal bender, so I have to make relief cuts. Yes, this is kind of messy, but this is the only way to make it work. You do find yourself doing more welding, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you get it done, it's just about getting it done. And then it was just a matter of just continuing. Now at this point I was about halfway through and the pieces were getting more difficult to make, so getting that contour was a lot of work. Just using the hammer, grinding it, and hammering to the right shape. It took a lot of work, but eventually we got it pretty close to the original. We ended up having some holes on the outside, so we had to do more patches, but that's the way it goes. The last piece was by far the most challenging. To get that piece to be like the original was really difficult, so I ended up cutting it out, doing a lot of hammering. Using relief cuts was another thing. Just bending the hell out of it until we were happy. And of course the relief cuts were the most useful thing, because in places like this where you have to make any sort of concave or convex shape, you find yourself having to do relief cuts in order to take some of the pressure off. And eventually it looks pretty much like the original. So we used our weld through primer, we dropped it in, and it was pretty damn good. I gotta say I was happy with it. Now it's just a matter of welding it all together, going back and forth, using our clamps, using our magnets, and just putting this sucker right back together. Now it's not perfect, I know it could be better, but at the same time we're not going for perfection here. We just want to get it done and make sure that it's as strong as possible. And after all the hard work, eventually it starts looking like something. And we're just constantly cooling it down as we go, because this is a pretty thin area over here. We didn't want any warpage, so we just kept cooling it down after every 5 or 6 welds. And eventually it got finished. We'll have the filler fix this up and make it look like brand new. On the other side it was much easier, so it looked a lot better. Pretty happy overall. All right, we're almost ready to start stripping this trunk lid. Almost, but not yet. There's still one more thing we got to do. Despite all the work we've put into this thing, one thing I have to do is actually see if this thing will close. Because we had made such a unique shape there, we did a lot of welding and whatnot, I don't even know if this thing's gonna close. It does seem different on this side than the other side. It's not exactly the same. There's some high points. I don't know. So what I gotta do is I gotta open this up, expose the beast, and we gotta see if this thing will actually go on. If it doesn't fit, I'm not gonna call it a surprise, because we've had a lot of surprises on this thing, so nothing surprises me anymore at this point. It could be done. Can be done. It's humanly possible to do what I want to do right now, but I'll try it anyway. What I would do to grow a third arm out of my back right now. Okay. Still believe in this. This is looking good. Impacting, it's not a good sound. Not supposed to impact at this point. Let's get a wrench. I am not forcing anything in. Last thing I need to do is put in new threads. I don't even know what position it's supposed to go in. Moment of truth, ladies and gentlemen. It does not look like it's going where it's supposed to. It's way too far this way. Okay, I centered it as much as I could. It's really difficult to do this myself. I hear a lot of banging around over there, so I don't actually know if this is gonna work or not. Let's just try it. Well, it closed, but it looks horrible. Let's hope I can get it open now. Uh-oh. That is what I was afraid of. Yep. Uh-oh. That's a problem. Oh, thank the Lord. Had a moment of perpetual fear there. Wow, okay. All right, after some adjustments and a bit of panic, we got trunk lid. Opens, closes, look at that. Oh, ain't that nice. Very happy with that. Still could be adjustment, but honestly, I'm pretty happy with this. There are some high points and low points, but we're gonna fix that in the body phase stage. Otherwise, it's pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. This is great. So this actually worked out. So now it's time to strip this thing and see if there are any more sins that have been committed to it. I'll take it off again. Oh. So we've concluded stripping the trunk lid, and overall I gotta say, I'm ecstatic. Look at this thing, it's damn near perfect. It looks in excellent shape now. I'm very happy about this. So the next stage is to really deal with any sort of rust that may be remaining or any sort of flash rusting or whatnot. This will be put in epoxy eventually, but first it will go to Bodywork. Before it does that though, there are some areas, if you look around, there is a little bit of staining of rust, so I will be dealing with that. But prior to doing that, I'm actually gonna flip this thing upside down. Okay. And much like the top side, the underside of this is in excellent condition. I'm really happy with it. It looks great. Now what I'm gonna be doing is putting on some Ospho on this entire bottom portion. The reason for that is flash rusting. It's gonna be a little while before I actually put this thing in epoxy, so I don't want it to flash rust, and at the same time, it's just gonna protect it a little bit more. Now, prior to doing any of this, once we had it all sanded, I actually took the time to take a 120 grit on an orbital sander and just scuff up the entire surface. So I scuffed up the entire top, and then I flipped it over and did the same thing on the bottom. The reason for this is epoxy primer adheres much better when there's tooth to it, so you're basically just leaving a little bit of a grit, you know, a little bit of a rough surface for the paint to adhere to. So I want to do that. But at the same time, it also makes it nice and clean. Now, I'm gonna be using Ospho for this part. Now on Ospho, they say don't treat it like a paint because it's not one. Despite them saying that, I still like to take steps as if I was painting it, which means cleaning this thing. I cleaned this thing absolutely the best I could, because at the end of the day, when this product goes on, it still will hold other kinds of particles and dust that is on here. So we're gonna do that. So basically for this part, there's not really any rust on it. There isn't. It's pretty much rust free. All I'm really gonna be doing is covering it. And I'm not putting a lot on, just you know, a little dab will do ya, basically. I'm gonna do this whole thing, and this is just gonna prevent it from rusting again and flash rusting. So we're just gonna do the whole thing, and we're gonna flip this thing over. Okay, with the other side complete, it's now time to move on this side. So what I wanna do is now tackle some of these areas where there's remaining rust. Now I sanded the hell out of these. I'm talking wire brushes, drums, everything as much as I could. I cannot take off any more rust here, but there's still a way we could take off more. So I really didn't want any Ospho on the top surface here, to be completely honest with you, because I don't know how long it's gonna last over time, but we have rust pitting. The problem with rust pitting is despite epoxy being on this, epoxy still pours to some degree, so moisture will travel through time. So we have to seal it. But even prior to doing that, I want to remove as much as I can. So Ospho scuff pad. Let's see what's going to happen here. All right, so already it's evident to see that there was some rust removed. Look at that. Wow. Now it's not perfect, but it's a lot better. We're gonna do another helping of this. I'm really gonna get in there too. A little more. That is some deep rust. But look, I am able to get some out of there. And that, my friends, is all it takes. So that's what I'm gonna do on this hood. I'm just gonna go to all the spots and do that with the scuff pad. However, rather than just doing those spots, I'm actually gonna run this whole thing with Ospho. I didn't really wanna do that, but I'm already doing points here, so there's no point of doing different consistencies. If I'm hitting it with Ospho, I might as well go all the way, so that's what we're gonna do. So there we go, our Ospho has been applied. We've taken off as much rust as we can, and the remaining rust has now been sealed. It's been converted into a paintable surface. This is really cool. So now all I have to do is wait 24 to 48 hours, come back with some lacquer thinner, hit it with the lacquer thinner, reduce the acidity, and this thing's ready for epoxy. This is pretty impressive. This is just gonna protect it while I work on all the other elements, because I have a lot of other panels to do. So it's gonna be quite some time before we get back to this. I can always remove this in the future and just have it back down to bare metal if I really want to. So that's an option. You know, as I look at this, I'm pretty amazed, because what was once a rusty mess, you know, a trunk lid that I think a lot of people would just throw out and get a new one, has now been saved. That's pretty exciting, because we've saved a piece of history. You know, this is the original trunk lid off the car. this is just awesome. You know, as a first timer being able to do this, I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with it. So I really hope some other people get inspired to save some old junk, because I don't know how much money we saved, if any at all, but at least we saved some history. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep saving history. We're gonna get on to the next part, keep saving this car one piece at a time.